Marxism Festival 2010. An absolutely fantastic Marxism. I'll just have to introduce myself first of all. My name's Alice Dyron. I helped organise the campaign, the Unite Against Fascism campaign in Barking and Dagenham, which obviously led to the fantastic victory against the fascist BNP. And I'm also a member of the SWP in East London. So yeah, I mean, it's been an absolutely fantastic year. A fantastic Marxism. I'm sure everyone will agree. It's been the biggest Marxism. It's been fantastic to have so many people from all around the UK and further afield as well, people from all around the world come together and discuss, another world and the possibility of another world and the fight back. We've had lots of people come together, fantastic trade union militants, students, and also lots of people who've come to Marxism for the first time ever. It's been really fantastic. I'd just like to apologise actually to the probably hundreds of people who didn't manage to get to the meetings that they wanted to go to. And obviously it's great that I understand that most of the meetings were absolutely packed, and I'm sure everyone will agree that this is a really brilliant thing, and I'm sure, if you didn't manage to get to your first choice, you probably went to another meeting which was equally as great. And also just to, announce that obviously all the meetings at Marxism have been recorded and are available on CD from Bookmarks, which will be open. It is open at Friends Meeting House. It's got stalls outside this room for people. A couple of announcements as well. I'm really, really pleased to announce that Bookmarks has sold a record £50,000 worth of books this year. And obviously it will be open later if people need to get last minute purchases. We've also seen over 140 people choose to join their Socialist Workers' Party at Marxism this year. Which is absolutely brilliant. I understand that the numbers are still being counted. Obviously, it's not too late to join the SWP. There are forms around, and please make sure you do join. Obviously, the people who have joined this year means that we are going to be better placed to fight the global economic crisis and for the struggles ahead. We've recruited fantastic, trade union militants, people who are involved in struggle, including, I'd like to add, the woman comrade BA worker who spoke at the opening rally. Lots of students as well. And obviously this means we are going to be, we're going to have new members in workplaces at university. We're going to be able to create new branches, and it's, it's going to be great. Right, just to let people know, I'm going to introduce the speakers individually as we go through. I mean, obviously, Marxism isn't just about the speeches and just about the meetings. It is about coming together to learn from each other's experiences and to acquire the tools that we need in order to fight in the coming months. And I would like to introduce our first speaker, who is Sarah Young. She's a student at Sussex University, where we've seen a glimpse of the kind of fight back that we want to see. Sarah has been instrumental to the struggles to fight against the cuts at the university, and also against the victimisation of the students who got suspended for their part in the struggle. And so, without further ado, we'd like Sarah to...
In education, we're facing huge attacks, potentially facing up to 40% cuts, and the Brown View will probably be lifting the cap on tuition fees, and we have an education minister whose vision for education is that rich kids will be able to go to university while the rest of us will get a certificate from further education colleges. But there's also huge potential for resistance in this. This is the biggest Marxism we've had in a number of years, and it shows that people are looking for ideas change the world, and we can see the shift in the student movement. Although it's been uneven across the country, there are examples of what is to come. Sussex, Kings, Middlesex, we've been in the first round of cuts, but they will be coming to every campus across the country. At Sussex, the campaign began from the bottom and went to the top, from the grassroots of ordinary students getting involved, the Students' Union, UCU, and the University Senate, creating a real feeling of a community of resistance. We've had 4 occupations, an emergency general meeting of the Student Union, called with 2 days' notice, over 950 people attending and hundreds turned away. And to show the real shift, normally we have around 300 students and the Student Union has to lie about plurality. And in this EGM, people knew what they were there to discuss. There was very little discussion, as we voted unanimously for no confidence in management and for the immediate, unconditional reinstatement of the Sussex Six. The campaign created a sense of our own power, that we can fight and we can win. The student campaign offered inspiration to the workers. We had a demonstration of 500 students chanting "Strike, strike, strike" outside a meeting of UCU and management. Before UCU even balloted for strike action, we collected for their strike fund, collecting hundreds of pounds, and from one occupation, we lowered down a bucket of money from a balcony to the president of UCU at Sussex. That this wasn't just an isolated struggle in education. I visited the picket lines of striking workers in Brighton, in our local town, taking collections for their strike fund, and so in return, the DNB collected for UCU's strike fund. In this way, we can see how students can act as a detonator for wider struggles, building the confidence of workers to fight back and resist. UCU at Sussex had their biggest turnout in their history, and over 80% voted in favour of industrial action. And when they went on strike, there were hundreds of students at the picket lines to support them. Management saw we were building something successful, and so attacked us at every opportunity with nasty, vicious tactics. Not only did they attack the trade union by suspending union activists and threatening 5 out of 6 of the UCU reps with compulsory redundancy, they also attacked students. When we occupied management's building on the day of the UCU ballot result, senior managers locked themselves in the office and created a fake hostage situation, on the basis of which they called riot police onto campus to attack students and got an injunction making occupations on campus illegal. We can see the parallels with BA and how their side will fall back on the state, the law, the police and the courts in an attempt to stop us fighting back. But at Sussex, we found a great way to deal with them using the law against us. We just defied it. Since the injunction. In another attempt to break the movement, management suspended 6 students, attempting to scapegoat them for the actions of many and prevent further resistance. This backfired on them. We had the largest demonstration of the campaign, with 750 people demanding their reinstatement, and went immediately into occupation with 300 students. Staff also defied the injunction, breaking the law in their own workplaces to come into the occupation and speak and teach. Management was so defeated by the unity of students and staff fighting together that they were forced to reinstate the students on the day of a UCU strike. Their class is coordinating their attacks on us, and so we must coordinate our fight back. One of the favourite slogans to come out of Sussex was, "Management, get out. We know what you're all about. Cuts, job losses, and money for the bosses." And I've since heard this slogan across the country at national demonstrations and last night at Marxism. And just as other slogans of Sussex have generalised across the country, so should our resistance when the cuts come. But this isn't just a localised fight about education cuts. This is part of the international working classes project over the next few years. They're trying to make us pay for their crisis, a crisis which we didn't create. But if we fight, we can make them pay. The struggle opens up questions of what education is for, what it's supposed to be about, who runs our universities, and whether education is for the masses or just the ruling class. And in this process, we can see how we we want to reshape universities and education. And as the scale of struggle develops and there are waves of occupations across the country, there are always raised questions, not just about how we could reorganise universities and run them for ourselves, but how we could reorganise society and run that for ourselves. 1968 is an example and inspiration of how the student movement can act as a detonator for wider struggle. The immediate struggle over cuts has the potential to broaden out and become more than just a defensive fight, but a fight for the possibility of another world.
The struggles at Sussex University has been an inspiration to all of us, all of us who are, either students or lecturers and teachers in different education establishments, but also to the wider struggle. And it's an example of how we can fight back through unity between students and workers. Before I introduce our next speaker, I've got a couple of very important things to say. A few thanks. Obviously, Marxism, we've had a fantastic Marxism this year, but obviously Marxism couldn't have happened without a few very important people who have been working tirelessly throughout the event. And you will have seen them in their red t-shirts, probably stressed, running around, but also, never too busy to stop and help people out. I would like to just really thank the team very much. I'd like to get them to stand up or give us a bow. As well. I mean, obviously we've recruited 140 and counting people at Marxism this year, which wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for the membership team. They're not quite as distinguishable. I'm sure many of you will have encountered them during the festival. I'd also like to give them a round of applause. They really helped me. A massive thank you to a group of people who have been working tirelessly since January over the past couple of weeks. If you went to the Marxism office, you would have seen this group of people sweating frantically, trying to create the festival out of very little resources, staying up till very late in the office, getting up really early, and they really made Marxism possible. So I'd like to say a very big thank you to Colin Smith and all the other people who worked in the office. Now our next speaker is Panos Garganas, who has been involved with the inspirational fight that we've seen over the past few months in Greece. Greece and our comrades over there and the working class has been at the cutting edge of fighting the economic crisis and struggling. Panos Garganas himself has been very involved with the struggle, and he's also the editor of the sister paper to the Socialist Worker. And I would like everyone to give him a massive warm welcome.
Well, comrades, in return, greetings from the striking workers of Greece. There's going to be a new general strike on Thursday. 6th time this year that we've had a general strike in Greece. 6 general strikes in 6 months. So we can fairly say that workers in Greece have responded with fury to the attacks organized by the IMF, the European Union, and the Greek government and bosses. And the first reason for this fury that we are seeing is the amazing scale of the attack. It's been horrific. The cuts are everywhere, in wages, in pensions, in hospitals, in education. The retirement age for women workers in the civil service is being raised by 15 years. Now, if this is not barbarism, I don't know what is. For a woman worker, in the civil service approaching 50 years of age to be asked to have 15 years of hard labor before she can retire, now this is barbarism. And cuts, people are losing 1 day's wages every week. This is the rate at which wages and pensions are being attacked. The hypocrisy is staggering. They say there's no money for hospitals in Greece. There's a huge crisis provoked by the fact that they're cutting back funding for the National Health Service. And at the same time, the Greek army is maintaining a military hospital to aid the American occupation of Afghanistan in Kabul. Now, if they can find money for a military hospital in Kabul, of course they can find money for hospitals in Greece, but they don't want to. This is the scale of the attack that people are facing. So, one reason why people are so furious is because of the scale of the attack. At the same time, the response of workers in Greece, I think, has shown what a myth it is that the working class has been rendered powerless by the development of capitalism, by the fact that capitalism now has changed. It's not the same as in Marx's time. And Greece has been used many, many times as an example that, well, where is the heavy industry? What exactly is Greece exporting? So where are the workers? Well, if they want to know where the workers are, they're out on the streets fighting. To a very large extent, this has been a spontaneous response. People have taken to striking and demonstrating despite the fact that the trade union leaderships have been trying to avoid a strike wave since the beginning of the movement. So we have seen again and again sections of workers take the lead despite the fact that there were weaknesses in the trade union leadership and weaknesses on the left. Bus workers in Athens, they discovered one day that they were not paid for the previous month. They tried to get the money from their bank accounts, and they discovered that the company had cut wages, had left them unpaid, because the government refuses to subsidize the transport company, which is a state company in Athens. Their response was immediate. They found out late in the evening. The next morning, they were at the gates. Not a single bus went out to the streets of Athens. I know many of you have been watching football on television. There's a World Cup going on. The same applies to people in Greece. But there's a difference. For a couple of days, you could see the matches televised but you could hear no commentary because the commentators were on strike. The state television company is trying to sack 250 people on temporary contracts. They refused to be sacked, they occupied the building, and they asked the trade union leaderships for strike support. And the journalists responded by organizing a 48-hour strike against the redundancies. That's why there was no commentary during those 2 days. And of course, the high point that shows the spontaneous strength of workers was on the 5th of May, when we had a general strike that was so massive, so massive. The reports say there were 500,000 people on the strike rally in the streets of Athens on that day. People were so furious. It was the day that Parliament was going to vote on the agreement with the IMF to implement all those cuts. The first contingents that reached the Parliament building attempted to go up the steps. It was the first time, for Greek history, it was the first time ever. Throughout the world we've seen many times, but it was bringing out these memories that workers, when they start to fight back, well, they can reach the level where they plan to storm parliaments. And this is what was on the verge of happening on the 5th of May in Greece. They were met with the riot police, and there were tons of tear gas released on people on that day. There were clashes with the police throughout the centre of Athens, but people were not intimidated. Such was the fury, the anger, the spontaneous response, that they could not convince people that they had to go back. There was a next general strike on the 20th of May and was nearly as big as that huge strike on the 5th of May. Having said that, we have to say that part of the development of the movement of resistance in Greece is partly spontaneous, partly there's the role of the revolutionary and the anti-capitalist left in helping this movement unfold. And I'd like to say a few things about this. The role of revolutionary socialists has been crucial from the beginning. The strike movement was started on the 17th of December. That was budget day in Greece, and that was the first attempt by the Greek government to impose cuts before they made an agreement with the European Union and the IMF. The trade union leadership said there's going to be no strike, no demonstration on that day, on budget day. But people were refusing to take this. A group of socialist teachers took the initiative to say, we will strike and demonstrate on budget day, no matter what the trade union leaders say. We need a strike because this is the beginning of the attack, the worst attack on the working class. And there was a strike on the 17th of December. The call initiated by the teachers was taken up by many sections of the working class, by seamen. There were no papers on that day in Athens, so that was a group of activists, of anti-capitalist activists of the far left, that initiated the strike movement. Since then, at every step, at every one of those 6 general strikes, it has been revolutionary socialist militants that have been organizing in workplaces to make sure that the strike rallies are huge. The contingent of the anti-capitalist left has led every one of the demonstrations on the days of general strike. It has been the road to what So, when we think of the events in Greece, we have to pay tribute to all the rank and file movements that have played this important role in organizing every step of the strike movement. At the same time, the role of the anti-capitalist left has been very important in providing a political lead, not just in being the most militant people in the workplaces, but also in trying to answer the government pressure, the government propaganda that says, well, we can understand you are angry. You know, we have a Labour-type government in Greece. PASOK was elected back in October on the promise that they wouldn't cut wages, as opposed to the Tory government that had initiated the attacks last autumn. They went back, and they're trying to excuse themselves. They say, well, of course we don't like to cut wages. We can understand people are angry, but it is necessary. There's no alternative. There's nothing else we can do. We have to implement the agreement with the IMF and the European Union, and the people who are out striking, well, what else? What's the alternative? And it's been the anti-capitalist left that is providing the answer to this propaganda. When they put this question, what we say is there is an alternative. The money is there. It's the money that you're giving to the bankers. Stop paying the debt. Stop paying the bankers. There's the money to pay the workers, to pay the wages, to pay the hospitals, to pay the schools. It is estimated in Greece that the Greek state pays 1 billion euros every week to service the debt. Now, this is a huge amount. It's a huge amount. 50 billion euros every year. If they stop paying 50 billion euros, then clearly the funding is there to stop the cuts and start reversing this terrible situation. So, it's been an ongoing debate, a crucial political debate, to start convincing people who are out in the streets, who go on strike, who want to escalate the action, that alongside the militancy strikes, they have to develop their political ideas, the anti-capitalist ideas, and this is beginning to happen. There are indications, there are even opinion polls who are not the most reliable indications, show that 32% of people in Greece are in favor of stopping to pay the debt. 48% are in favor of nationalizing the banks. And 72% say we don't trust the IMF and the European Union, they should get out of Greece. Greece should break the agreement with the European Union and the IMF. Now, these are huge percentages. 2/3 are opposed to the IMF. Half of people say nationalize the banks, and 1/3 say, right, cut the funding, stop paying for the debt, and that will provoke a crisis that the bankers will have to pay for the crisis, not us. So this is a vital political battle that we have to carry forward, to elaborate on these demands, to have an anti-capitalist program, to say that yes, we have to nationalize the banks and we have to fight for workers' control over the nationalized banks. There's no other way we can make sure that the rich will start paying, because we know how they organize tax evasion. We know how they use the lack of controls over capital flight. And we have to take steps so that workers can stop these tricks used by the bosses. We have to say, yes, the banking system has to be nationalized, and we have to system will be under workers' control. Comrades who have come out of Greece to meet at the invitation of people have come back with pictures of how important the struggle in Greece is in the eyes of workers around the world. And I'd like to end on this. We gain in Greece inspiration by the solidarity that we are seeing in other countries. I'd like to take the opportunity here to thank the comrades of the International Socialist Tendency for taking the initiative to organize meetings in other countries where they have invited speakers from Greece. The list is impressive. We've had Greek speakers invited by the INC in Toronto and Seoul, in Belgrade, Vienna and Prague, as well as London, Manchester, Glasgow and Dundee. We thank all these comrades for organizing these meetings. It is certainly important for us in Greece to receive solidarity like that. But I think a Greek-type wave is going to hit many, many countries as the crisis is getting worse. Everything that we see, the latest developments indicate that everywhere, governments and ruling classes are preparing for a future where it is either a deeper recession or deeper cuts or both. This kind of deepening of the crisis is ahead of us, and it will produce in many, many countries a response that is similar to Greece. So, our task is to make sure that we organize revolutionaries everywhere so that they can respond to this deepening of the crisis. Let's make sure, comrades, that the revolutionary tradition of Marx and Lenin and Trotsky, of Cliff and Chris Harman, inspires the way revolutionary socialists try to respond to this deepening of the crisis in the coming months. It's been a great strength to us in Greece to be part of that tradition. I think it will be a strength for everyone, everywhere, no matter where they face this situation. Thanks.
Julie Sherry works in the National Office for the Socialist Workers' Party, and she's going to introduce our
will be defeated. Will never will be defeated. Because united will
I think, as the chair said, the issue of Marxism has been a really fantastic success. She's brought together activists from all over the world, and I'm sure that everyone will agree that Marxism has been a really inspiring 5 days, particularly this year, where we've been able to hear eyewitness accounts, not just about the mass strikes in Greece, but about how they were built. This is going to give us some really essential lessons for what we're here. And not only is Marxism inspiring, but it's also extremely necessary for our movement right now. There are massive cuts coming. We're facing an unprecedented rise in unemployment, the biggest attacks on living standards in decades, and a massive onslaught of public sector. And we're facing an ideological attack to go along with that. They want us to cuts, and they want us to cuts in. And you can see this in the sheer audacity, them trying to put notices out to communities to tell them that they can decide what cuts to make where. They want us to blame each other. They want to divide us. They want to divide us between private sector and public sector, between black and white, between straight and gay. We have to resist the cuts on the one hand, but we also have to campaign against these divisions that they're trying to create. We have to be ideological too. We didn't cause this crisis, and we're not paying for it. And people will know that the SWP places itself at the heart of all these struggles against the cuts, bringing solidarity to striking workers, campaigning to stop the national BNP. We're also involved in sending a convoy to Palestine to grenades, and then campaigning for LGBT rights. And when you think about it, so much of taxpayers' money has been wasted on the bailout of the banks, and it's time that the taxpayers' money is used to build mass protests against bankers and bosses. And this is where you guys come in. I'm not making a moral argument here of why you should dig deep. This is not a guilt trip at all. It's a political necessity to dig deep as you possibly can to fund the fight ahead. We need to make sure that on October the 3rd, when the Tory party has its conference in Birmingham, that it's met with massive protests. There's going to be a demonstration in the autumn against racism, and we must build this as broad as possible. Money can't buy a revolution, but it can help build the solidarity that's needed. And the BA worker told us she didn't ask us at the open rally, but when the next strike date is announced, that we will be building solidarity because their fight is our fight. And we need funds to build this solidarity. So any donation you make now is a political commitment to class struggle. So please dig deep and help resistance.
As the
topics are going round, I'm going to take this opportunity
to vypadalo zajímavě, já jsem měl pár, to nebyla ani ono to vypadalo hezky, ale tě vyfotím, jak tam sypáš peněženku.
Gig, which I hope many of you already have tickets for, but if you don't, they are available on the desk outside this room. It's going to be a fantastic way to bring Marston to a close. We've got various artists performing, including Jazzamaker, Maroon Town, Low-Key and Underground, who are not only fantastic performers and artists, but also people who, you know, in their own way have contributed to resistance and struggle. I'd also like to make a plug for our full spectrum resistance, which is, if you agree with the politics of the SWP, if you'd like to get that in the post straight to your doorstep on a weekly and monthly basis, for £9 a month you can get the Socialist Worker every week, the Socialist Review and the International Socialism Journal delivered to you. Like I said, only £9 a month, and that you can sign up for that outside there will be forms available. Just a few housekeeping things. The luggage room at Friends Meeting House will be closing 10 minutes after the rally, so if you've got any luggage, please make your way as quickly as you can after the rally to pick that up. Also, if anyone is available and up for helping actually kind of pull the posters down and pack things up after Marxism, please do. The team needs as much help to do this as quickly as possible, and they will be meeting after the rally just in front of the stage. If you're free, please do give us a hand. And just lastly as well, before anyone leaves Marxism today, before people leave after the rally, do make sure that you've got information about the next branch meeting in your area. Branch meetings will be happening this week, and there'll be information available. And make sure that you, that you do get involved, and get information about whatever trade union fraction meeting that is going to be happening. We really do need to take everything that we've kind of gained from Marxism on over the next few months to help us build the struggle. So our final speaker I'd like to introduce is Martin Smith. He is one of the national officers for Unite Against Fascism. He is also the national coordinator for Love Music Hate Racism, and is also the national secretary for the Socialist Workers' Party.
The great revolutionary Lenin once said that we should leave all the over 30s to the Liberals. Now, I know there's some people on the Central Committee that don't like that position. I personally am not too worried about it being 27. I've still got a few years to go, but we'll see. And also, people may also know that over the last few years we've done quite a lot in our leadership to bring in some new young activists who help lead and run the Socialist Workers' Party. And one of those people is Colin Smith. And Colin Smith is come on all our marks last year and this year, and I think each year has got better and better, and much of his marks have been so successful. Thanks to Colin. Now, Colin is moving to France, which is very much France's game, and I wanted to personally thank him and wish him well, and I want to make sure that this conference, Marxism Festival, understands the great work that Colin has done, so I'd like to thank him personally. Go to his head and we don't know the last of it. He organised him in Mark Francis for the beer. I want to start actually by something that happened just before the election. Ed Balls, the Labour Education Secretary at the time, went to visit a junior school, an infant school in Ilford. And I don't know if you saw it, but they were filming him going around the school, shaking all the kids' hands, all the teachers' hands. And there was this young boy, I think he must have been 4 or 5 years of age, and he was sitting in a cardboard box. He was going, brum, brum, brum. And then Balls goes up to him, really patronisingly, and goes, "Hello there, how are you doing?" And the little boy goes, "I'm alright." And he goes, "Are you driving a car?" And the little boy goes, "No, I'm sitting in a box." And the way the political class treat us right now is with contempt, with complete patronisation. And I think we have to understand that I think people, just like that little boy sitting in his box, knows what's going on. I think now most of us have got to smell in the coffee and know what's going on as well. Because the next few, in fact it started last week, but the next few days, anyone who's a public service worker who goes over back to your office the next few days, you're going to get this letter. And I'm going to read out this letter. It says the following. Dear colleague, first of all, we want to thank you. Whatever your job is, nursing in a hospital, working in a government department, teaching our children, or one of the other key roles of the public sector, you keep our country running. People who work in the public sector don't often get enough credit for what they do. So thank you. Lovely letter so far. But let us be clear. The biggest challenge our country faces is dealing with our huge debts, and that means we have to reduce public spending. We want you to help us find those savings so we can put public spending in a way that is fair and responsible. You work on the front line of public services. You know where things are working well, but you also know where there is waste and where we can rethink things so we can get a better service for less money. So this is why we're writing to you today. We're asking you to visit our website or phone 0207 270 4558 and tell us your ideas about getting more for less. Don't hold back. Be innovative. Be radical. Challenge the way things are done. Every serious idea will be considered. Yours sincerely, the Right Honourable David Cameron and the Right Honourable Nick Clegg. Let's start with one thing to be clear. These swines are neither right and neither are they honourable. But I thought I'd do one thing. This morning when I got given this letter, I thought, I might ring that number. So I've got a few suggestions. And so, I don't put my name on this, I used to work in the civil service, so I got my own civil, and I found out a number, and I pretended I was a civil servant. And I made 2 phone calls actually, one to pose it in one way and one to pose it in another and see how they reacted. First phone call went something like this. She goes, "Hello there, can I help you?" I said, "Yes, I'm a passport office worker and I'd like to make some suggestions about having jobs." She goes, "Okay, far away, I'm going to record all these, name department." I said, "The first thing I thought we could all do is sack every cleaner and sack every security member staff." Great idea. How many of them in your office? I said, "About 50, I think." Wonderful. Second idea, I said, "We all know, don't we, that there are some members of staff that are really incompetent and lazy." She goes, "Right, I'll write this down." I said, "I thought what we could do, we could have a ballot, and we could vote on the lazy ones and sack them." That's another very good idea. I'll write that down. Then I thought, I better not let this go through, because they'll probably put it through and some poor swine loses his job because of my joke. So I said, to be honest with you, I'm lying, I'm not a civil servant, I just want to see what swine you were. I said, how can you sleep at night doing that? I said, your probably colleague next door to you is doing the phone in your office up, and get rid of you. And she goes, it does make you think, doesn't it? And she goes, so I phoned up again 5 minutes later. This other guy picked up the phone, and I said, I've got a suggestion for you. He said, oh, what's that? I said, why don't you bloody well sack all the cabinet? Because if you did that, you save £1.7 million a year. I'm not so sorry, I can't record that. That's not a serious proposition and can't be done. So it's alright to phone these people up to sack a cleaner or a security member, but it's not alright to sack the cabinet. So let's be clear, we're not all in it together. We never were all in it together. We never will all be in it together. There's them and there's us, and when it comes to that, we have to stand with the us and not them, and we're not all in it together. And other great rights, they talked about the great productive force of capitalism, the potential for this system to feed, clothe, house all of us. But it doesn't. It doesn't for one very, very, very simple reason. They always put people before profit. And precisely because they always put people before profit, profit before profit, precisely because, I'll say this one more time because I never live it down, precisely because they put profit before people, this condemned government is declaring war on every single one of us. Declaring war. Let me just clear, they are smashing our jobs. They've announced 600,000 public sector worker jobs to go in 5 years. They're going to slash services, attack the disabled, attack the young, attack students, attack every single one of us. And even when it comes to Afghanistan, even when they know they can't win that war, rather than bend and rather than accept they were wrong and rather than withdraw British and American troops, in order to protect their interests abroad and make them look strong, they are going to stay in Afghanistan, kill more and more Afghanis and kill more and more British people because they'd rather our lives were spent and spilled, our blood spilled, than ever to have to back down. They are wrecking our lives, and most important of all, they are bloody well killing us. They are killing us, and I'll tell you why. If you saw Friday's Guardian, there was the most shocking thing. It found that if you're a male living in Blackpool, your life expectancy was 73.5 years. If you're a male living in Kensington and Chelsea, and for those that don't know, that's where the tops live. Not all, this obviously, I'll come back to this in a second, but that's where a lot of the tops live in this country. Your life expectancy is 84.3 years. You're going to live a year, 10, 11 years longer than a working class person from Blackpool. But look at inside Kensington as well. If you're a woman in Kensington, and you're in the A to B sociological category of class, your life expectancy is 89.9 years, nearly 90 years. If you're a woman person in the category C and D, working class people, your life expectancy is 76.8 years. What's that? Nearly 13, 14 years difference. They are making the poor die early, and the rich are living longer, and that gap is growing decade after decade. It grew more under Labour last time. It's a disgrace, and it's something we have to understand. If you go and put that abroad, the average life expectancy in India is 50, and 63 if you're rich. In Africa, it's 70 if you're rich, and 46 if you're poor. They are killing us in England and across the world. And I'll tell you how sick this system is I was given a leaked civil service report just after the election, and it was asked by the government to look into how much would the government save if it raised the retirement age by 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years and 5 years. And it goes through the millions, actually billion pounds that they'd save. There's another question there that asked civil service to look into what was called natural wastage. Now, I thought, what's natural wastage? The civil service, PCS, the search looked into it. And natural wastage was the term they used for those who would die rather than claim their pension by working extra years. So this government, not only is it trying to find money how much it will save by actually just increasing their pension age, but they are now having people work out how many extra people will die because of the raising of the pension system. That's sick. That is a sick system that puts profit before people, puts real human people's lives and just throws them on a scrap heap and wants to see them die. I tell you, I'm sick of this government turning around and telling people, get on your bike, go and look for jobs. We're going to cut 1.5 million jobs in the public sector, 600,000 jobs in the public sector, and raise 1.6 or 2 million jobs in the private sector. It's a joke. Everyone knows it's a joke. There's nothing real about it. But they don't turn around and say they're worried about generational unemployment. Well, I'm worried about generational unemployment. I don't want to see anybody on the dole. And they say there's a whole culture developing of children, their dads and their grandparents all on the dole, living off the dole. DWP done some research on it, and first of all, there aren't many families at the moment living like that, there'll be more. But there are 3 hotspots. Let me just tell you where those hotspots are. The Welsh Valleys, Bolsover and Doncaster. Do those names ring any bells to you? I'll tell you where their hotspots are. They're the old mining villages. These are the people's lives who were smashed by Margaret Thatcher and the Tories last time, and if they get their way, there'll be more generational hotspots. They'll be all over the country. They're going to try and smash other people's communities now, and they just ain't good enough. And for me, and for many working class people right now, this is a revenge match. They're trying to destroy our lives. It shouldn't be us getting on our bikes. It should be them getting on their bikes and getting right out of the whole system. Because they're putting profit before the environment, before the future for our young. There's money for war, there's money for tribe, there's no room to tax the rich, but they're going to keep squeezing us and squeezing us and squeezing us unless we do something about it. And I tell you what, I'm sick of this letter and it talks about the debt. They're worried about the debt. Well, you know, I've been in debt all my life. Never seemed to worry me that much, and I'm sure most of you are the same. You see, I tell you why I'm not worried about the debt, because I've had a little digging in the ground to see what went on in the old days. And at the end of World War II, the UK national debt topped over 200% of the gross domestic product. And for almost all the 20th century, rarely has it gone below 40%. And now, I don't know if you knew this, did you know that 200% of our GDP we were in debt by after the war? Now, I've been 27, that means for 23 years of my life, actually, 40 years of my life, we have been, 2006. So for decades, we've been living under massive, massive debts. I didn't go to bed at night worried about it, didn't even notice it. And what makes me laugh is today, what's the name of the debt? Well, you can take the pick. But according to the National Audit Office, the national debt stands at 893.4 billion, which is 53.9% of GDP. Some people say it's double that. All right, say it's double that. That's 106% of GDP, almost half of what it was at World War II. See, why I think this is also not just completely about profit, I believe it's an ideological angle to it. Because after 1945, what did they do about the national debt? Did they go slashing services? Did they go cutting jobs, throwing young people on the dole? Actually, no, they didn't. The 1945-51 government launched the National Health Service, started universal benefits, and we saw 3 decades of strong growth. It's about priorities. And this government wants to score a deal against everything that we cherish. I mean that. I think we've lived, many of us in this room, have lived under not a perfect system by any stretch of the imagination. But there was the National Health Service. It's always an old joke. My nan used to tell me. My nan grew up before the war, where she could never get her teeth done. She must have had a terrible diet because my teeth are still in my mouth. By the time she was 40, she had no teeth left at all. And she described when they got in 1946 and introduced their health stuff in 47 and 48, she went to the dentist and got her first ever full set of teeth. And she then said, I weren't greedy, but I got a second pair, just in case the Tories got back in again and took the National Health Service away. And I tell you what's going on right now is, for decades, Cameron and his mates in Eton hated the welfare system. Hate the idea that workers think they've got a right to a job, a right to a house, a right to an education, and they want to take that away from us. So we want to rip it from our hearts. And I think we have to start saying, in this situation, and that's the third point we get onto, we can start seeing polarisation take place. And I think we are seeing polarisation. We're seeing across Europe the growth of the far right and fascist parties, and it's worrying. And it seems to me, really almost everywhere in Europe, they are getting between 5 and 15% of the vote. We've also seen a more worrying development in England, with the development of the English Defence League. Well, I've got a new name for the English Defence League, which is the English No Defence League, no Midfield League, no Forward League. It seems to me we have a real problem, but seriously, they're a serious organisation, I think we have to deal with it. And, I want to say that in dealing with it, I'm proud to be involved in an organisation called Unite Against Fascism. It seems to me, if we're right, there are dark clouds on the horizon and coming closer towards us. We need a big umbrella, Pacific Ring, because we're going to need as much protection and to protect as many people under it as we possibly can. And that's why we're going to make an urge today for everyone to go out to Dudley on the 17th of July and at Bradford on the 28th of August, because that's where the EDL are going next, and we want to mobilise against them and march against them and protest against them, say they shall not pass in our streets, in our communities, and intimidate Asian people, Muslim people, and threaten our way of life. Secondly, we hope to be able to announce next week what we're going to call a national demonstration with Unite Against Fascism, the TUC, and the Muslim Council of Britain. The United Demonstration Against Fascism, Racism and Islamophobia. And we want that to be on the 6th of November, and we want to make that a big show of force to say actually the racists, the fascists are a minority in this country, and we will stand shoulder to shoulder with all those who face racial persecution, all those who suffer under the hands of this right-wing government, and these right-wing bigots and these fascists, and then the BNP, and we have to make sure everyone mobilises for that demonstration, make it as big and vibrant as possible. It's got to be the beginning of a trend. It's been hard in the last 6 months on the demonstrations against the fascists, because the way the police have treated us. The police have treated the anti-racist movement as it's the problem, and not the EDL. In fact, so much so that the Greater Manchester Police Chief said he thought the EDL would well behaved and it was Unite Against Fascism that caused the trouble. And we've seen people like Wayne Bennett falsely arrested, and other leading people there from Manchester falsely arrested, and myself. And I think we have to ask a quick question: what's going on? Because I have to say, I was shocked about that and what was going on. And we decided that we would go, me and Wayne would go and meet a Labour minister at the time. And we asked the Labour minister, look, what the hell is going on here, man? This is serious. We're getting people charged and could go to prison for 5 years of their life. We are seeing our people being arrested willy-nilly, and you're attacking us left, right and centre. He said he'd go away and he'd talk to a police commissioner. And he came back, and the first thing he did when he met us, he asked us to take our batteries out of our phones. Now, it's a bit much, really, isn't it? That you meet a minister, and he has to get you to take your battery out of your phone because he's scared that the state is listening in. It's a bit worrying, really, isn't it? The person who's supposed to run the state is fearful of the state that he is running. And he actually said there are two theories in the state. There's those of the Labour Party who argue that the state, when you take government, you control the state. He said there's people like you in the SWP that say the state is there to protect a small minority in society. He said, I have to be honest with you, the SWP is definitely right. So that came from the Labour minister. But he said that he was worried because he said the Commissioner of the Police said that, well, there's a problem. You've got an economic crisis coming, and it's a bit like 1928, and the left is trying to organise and grow. And really, it's a question of checks, balances. We've got to keep some checks and balances on the left. Otherwise, what they're trying to say is, they'd rather the fascist right group and try and weaken the left in order to do that. That's the checks and balances. The checks and balances means Wayne being threatened with 5 years in prison. The checks and balances, they're brutalising protesters on the streets in Bolton. Their checks and balances are terrorising the Muslim community using PPE money, using police brutality and all this. That just will not do. And that's why you can't rely on the state when you're fighting the EDL and the fascists. You can't rely on the people who killed and murdered Blair Picture, and that is now official. We should write that on every single book we ever know, because for 30 years his friends and families and our comrades have campaigned for justice for Blair, and finally we've got at least some justice. Some like the fact that they did kill Blair Picture, they murdered him on the streets of South, and we should never forget that. That's why you can't trust the police. You can't trust the police in 1936 when they allowed Mosley to march and allow these people to brutalise our people. So we have to rely on ourselves. But I want to say this. We can't just have the left, the revolutionary of this country, fighting the right. Our central task is to resist those attacks. And let me say this. The rich can always get out of a crisis. Always. If we pay for it. And they want us to pay for it, and it was going to be bloody if they get their way. The last time, the 1930s, we saw poverty, fascism, and it ended really with World War II. We can't really have that scenario this time round. So we will pay. They will make us pay if they get out of it. it seems to me there's a couple of problems that come out from this argument that we're going to go and have you resist. The first is that people say to you the Tories are invincible. But I don't really buy that. You see, there's no doubt this is a vicious, nasty Tory Liberal government. Vicious, but it's weak. You see, they often compare Cameron to Thatcher. Makes me laugh, man. Makes me laugh. My goldfish has got more anger in it than Cameron. They've got more guts in it than Cameron. I'll tell you why. And I'll tell you their big danger. The big danger for them is this. When Thatcher declared war on the working class, she took her time. They organised what was called the hippie plan. They took on one group of workers, then another, then another. And they salamied the working class at the little bits, and then finally went to the miners and the dockers later on, and broke them bit by bit by bit. See, Cameron has forgotten his past, because really the last 30 years the Tories have had it really good. They haven't seen the working class at its height. And Cameron thinks he can come in with all his boots on at everybody, all at the same time. And the danger of that strategy, of course, is if he wins, it's going to be nasty. But I'll tell you what, we also know that we have a chance. That if he takes us all on, and we unite together, then we can send Cameron packing, and it'll be him getting on his bike, and not us getting on ours. And therefore we have to make sure that weakness is there, and we can explain that to people and the rest of it. The second thing really is about where we're going. Because if you join the SWP, if you're in the SWP, the first thing we go into is your part of fighters. I think that's obvious from everyone knows. People will stand up and fight. The people are going to make sure they fight against the fascists, fight against the job cuts, defend migrant workers, stand up to those who want to bring division into our community. And I'll tell you what, I get the feeling, and I'm not being over-optimistic, but I get the feeling that cracks in the dam are beginning to appear and they're getting wider with each day. 2 weeks ago, David Trevor, who's not really, he's on the left in one way, but he's not really on the left for a long time, but even, at Unison, the biggest union said at his conference, we will authorise strikes of any group of workers who face cuts, and there will be a national strike of Unison if they went for their pensions. Interesting. The government announced it's going to try and get through Parliament a quickening law which will allow it to cut the amount of benefit money it gives in severance pay to those workers it's sacking. Well, it's interesting, they want to sack 600,000, so they're getting their move in very quickly today. So what pronounced on the radio that their union would ballot their members to strike if they tried to do this. So we begin to see those at the top beginning to take some responsibility and begin to talk about the fight. But I want to say this, and I want to say this as a very serious warning. From the best to the rest of those trade union leaders, we can't leave the fight to them. If we leave the fight to them, we are fighting with one hand tied behind our backs. Because while they're making noises about fighting, you also see the fact that TUC is inviting Cameron to come to the TUC Congress in September. Why? Why would you want that little scumbag coming to your conference and tell you to phone his hotline to sack yourself with? Why? Why would you want that man anywhere near your conference? Why? It broke my heart actually on Thursday night. That BA woman who spoke was brilliant. That woman is a lion. A real lion. A woman fighting to defend her friends and her colleagues and her comrades. And she said we'd be out in August. That next day rather, the union announced that it would not be recommending a yes or a no vote. These are people who are lions and they're being led by donkeys, and it's time they started to lead these people. We can't have these people go left to fight for us. It's just not good enough for our people to go out and strike day after day after day and don't provide the kind of fighting spirit that they deserve. They deserve for all of Heathrow to come out. Why let them pick us off one at a time? That's what the Tories did in the 80s. We must learn the lessons of our defeats and make sure these things never happen again. No longer should we allow these donkeys to lead us. So we have to start to organise where they want to fight, get in behind them. But it also seems to me that we have to start to build up in the rank and file at the grassroots level the kind of resistance that can win. That no, they never ever pull their punches. We must never ever pull our punches. If you give them an inch, they will take a mile from us. And I'll tell you, this is what I also think about it. When you're in the SWP, whether you're a branch secretary, whether you're a steward, whether you're a student, whether you're an unemployed person, whether you're a pensioner, pensioner, you know those people will be doing their best to stir up the resistance, stir up the strikes, stir up the protests, and if you like that, well then you're going to love us. If you want to fight, you're going to love the SWP. And I want to make one more plea for it before I move on, which is this. It seems to me we need to start to connect those struggles together. We did it quite well, I thought, when we marched at the Labour Party conference last year. You began to see the wind farm workers, Vestas, on the Isle of Wight join the protest. We saw rail workers join the protest. We saw Vistian workers come. We saw engineers. We saw civil servants. We saw students. The beginnings of bringing together a network of people who can link their struggles. There's only one place to be on the 3rd of October. And that's in Birmingham, outside the Tory Party conference. We want everyone to be there. We want to send a very, very clear message to families. We are coming for you and your causes. It is there that you will be heard. There's simply one other problem. And that's a person I know called Tina. I don't know if any of you know Tina. You might have a friend called Tina. There is no alternative. There's nothing we can do. Well, I'll tell you what. We have to start telling the Tinas of this world and the Daves or whoever else they are telling us there's nothing we can do about it, the Gordons and all the rest. I think we have to turn out these people and say, where has that ever got us in the past? Where has it ever got us in the past to say there's nothing we can do? You see, don't you think when Spartacus decided to have a slave uprising, I bet there was some Tina the slave or Dave the slave. Oh, you know what, it's been slaving for hundreds of years. We're never ever going to change it. We've just got to go in the gladiator ring, chop each other to pieces, serve our masters and get on with it. Of course, there was an alternative and they rose up and they showed there was. I went to Atlanta 2 years ago to a museum dedicated to Martin Luther King. There's a letter where Martin Luther King, it's called A Letter to Birmingham, where the elders of Birmingham say to him, you can't fight Martin, we'll never win. And he writes this wonderful eulogy to the struggle. And we have to come out and say, we can only guarantee one thing. If you don't fight, you will never win. If you roll over, they will kick you, like a dog. They'll roll you over and they'll beat you till you die. What we can, not guarantee you, but we do know this. If we fight, we have a chance of victory. If we have a fight, we have a chance of wiping the smiles off their ugly mushes, and that is why we fight. It's better to fight and die than just die. Always better to fight and die. You don't have to win. You never have to win in the Marvel Ladies. We want to prove that Margaret Thatcher beat the miners. What beat the miners was a lack of solidarity. What beat the dockers was a lack of solidarity. And we have to make sure when our next group of people stand up to fight, whether they're the unemployed, whether they're workers, whether they're pensioners, whether they're students, that they are not defeated because they are left alone to fight, and therefore unity is our strength. The last thing is why we have to be socialists. We're not just for fighting and against the fascists, against the Tories, against those who want to compromise. We are also socialists. And I'll tell you what being a socialist means to me, more than anything else. It's about holding on to your principles and some kind of integrity. Because the first thing is to say, we never, ever make compromises to racists. Never. We don't go around like some people do saying, why Labour lost the elections because it didn't make enough case about too much about migrant workers. We never pander to racists. We are part of an international tradition of the socialist workers movement, which starts from the basic premise. We have more in common with a Chinese worker, a Mexican worker, a worker from Germany, a worker from Sierra Leone, than we do with any of David Cameron and the Queen. We have more in common with any of those people. We stand shoulder to shoulder against. They are not the problem. The real problem in this society are those who want to divide us, and we have to make sure we do not allow scapegoating at all. Secondly, it's a more worrying development. I noticed it in some of the debates at Marxism. One of the meetings I went to about reformism, a young person stood up and said, why don't we get into Parliament, sneak in and get elected and change things? I went to another meeting, but argued again today. Why don't we get guns and arm ourselves and shoot Cameron? It sounds good. It sounds good. I'll tell you what, if I thought that would change anything, I'll tell you what, I'll be off this platform quicker than you can do, and I'll be down 10 down sheet. I don't think it will work. In the fascist meeting I did yesterday, so I said, why don't we get squads of big tough people to go and beat them up? I tell you, in the SWP we don't believe in the big man theory of history, that other people will do it for us. Never believe other people will do your fighting for you. We don't believe it's about the great individual. We don't believe it's just someone in Parliament can change things for us, that a bullet will change things for us, or just a big tough man beating a Nazi over the head will do it. We believe in the potential of all working class and the poor to resist. We don't believe we're victims. We don't believe in the passive victims of history. We believe we can be the ones that can create and shape history, and therefore we rely on our own strength, and that is a harder job. That is a harder job than just going off and doing it. It sounds much easier. Working amongst working class people, challenging racism, arguing a way to win strikes, arguing a way to save your local hospital. It's harder than just thinking you can go and do it yourself. But we start from the great tradition of socialism from below and not socialism from above. We believe in our class, our power, our people. Always believe in your people. Never be ashamed of our class. Never. The last thing I want to talk about is we have a different vision of the world. You see, right now it seems to be there is a massive ideological debate out there. And I think much of it is going our way. I do meetings in colleges, in schools, in trade unions, and there is a thirst for Marxist, socialist ideas, and I think it's absolutely right that we try and encourage workers to see them, raise their sights and try and understand the world that they are. We relate to students who want to debate ideas of philosophy and socialism and everything, and I think we have to save ourselves as doing this. But I'll tell you something else, you see. What I think is great about Marxism is often when you're a socialist, you get told that really all you care about is the economic and political struggle. Well, yes we do, because actually that's the real motor of change. But don't you think this event says something else? That as socialists, we've got something to say about everything. About the poor in Africa, about art, about culture, about religion, about working class, about feudalism, about ancient society. We have a debate, argue and question everything. And that's a great tradition. But I'll tell you what really scares me and what makes me a socialist. I sometimes do meetings in schools, and when you go meeting with young kids at school, 8 or 9, you say, what do you want to be? And they say all kinds of things. Say things, I want to be a doctor, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be the greatest football player in the world. And I then go and do meetings with kids of 17 and 18. And you say to them, what do you want to be? And they say, I don't care. Don't know. Got no idea. One kid even asked once, I want to be a bank robber like my dad. What it means is, this system of capitalism, sucks the living juice out of our people. It brings them up, chews them up, and spits them right out. And our vision of society is to throw away the idea that human beings are worthless and talk about our contribution to create a world equal for every single person. A place where everyone is free to be who they really are, free from fear and persecution. To fight that everybody has a free will. And that's not a lot to ask. That's the least we should be asking for ourselves. And therefore, when you join the SWP, you're not just fighting to join an organisation that fights, it has debates. You're joining an organisation that has a different vision of the world that we live in, and we want you to share that vision with us. And now my last sentence is this. There are many people in this room here today who have been around the left for a long time, maybe been in our organisation for a bit and moved away. And some of you have never ever come across SWP before until you've come to this event. And I have a simple message for you today, which is join us. Join us. Why? Really simple. We are going into battle now. We are going into battle. The outcome of that battle is not guaranteed. The outcome of that battle is not guaranteed. Not at all. But we all know that the more socialists there are and the less teamers there are, the better off we're going to be. And we know that wherever there's a socialist, there's a potential for the fight back, for resistance. And if it isn't time now to join, when will it ever be time? They're coming for us. They are coming for us. They're coming for you. They're coming for your wives, your lovers, your mothers, your fathers, your daughters, your children, your grandfathers. They're coming for you. And the only response in that situation is to come back and fight them. So join us today, and thank you for coming to Marxism.
that were done throughout Markston have raised £5,500 for our Python Fund. Now, we're going to end Markston in the best tradition. One of a song that is steeped in the struggle of the Paris Commune. There are words on your chair. I'd like everyone to join in.
Anglickou, jo? Dobrý. Stop jako konzervativci, Tories.
Já se skalmy jako
ne, Tories stop, here we come. Hele, máš tady něco to?
Genuju. Oni na čelo zpívají nějaký...
Chceš to?
Já nevím, a co to je?
To je seznam těch CDček, že?
Aha.
No, oni to zpívají, oni to vyspívávají jinak, že jo? Czech Republic, okay?
Oh, yeah,
Yes, Citizens Organization. Okay.